It's U of L Today on 93.9 The Ville. Here's your host, Mark Hebert.
Welcome to U of L Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. Glad you're joining us today for the show that's about all things University of Louisville. That includes research, what the students are doing, great faculty, events on campus. We'll try and keep you up on all that kind of stuff with this program, which is for the next 30 minutes or so. So hope you'll stick around. All right, it's Poison Prevention Week in Kentucky. We'll have a pediatrician here to talk about all the dangerous poisons you've got around the house and that your kids could get into. You may not even realize they're around the house. And we'll tell you about some of those products and how to keep your kids or grandchildren away from them. We'll also talk about a program that's pulling older war veterans and teenagers together around art, how it's helping both of those groups stay healthy. Yes, you heard that correctly. Art making you healthy. But first, ambulance and EMS workers deal with traumatized parents all the time. A baby stops breathing, a 3-year-old is hit by a car. How in the world do EMS workers help families deal with that kind of pain right there on the scene immediately? Well, Anita Barbie from U of L's Kent School of Social Work is here to talk about the COPE project, which aims to help those EMS workers. Anita, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you again.
Good to be here.
All right, tell us about this COPE grant, this COPE project that you're working on. What is it?
The COPE project is led by Dr. Mary Fallett at the medical school and Department of Surgery. And we got a grant from HRSA a few years ago to understand how EMS providers cope when they have to deal with a child who's dying or has died in an out-of-hospital setting, and also how they help the families cope during those very stressful situations.
Yeah, and what's the idea behind this app? Which kind of describe it. What are the EMS workers doing? What are they seeing?
Well, what we did is we have created an app. It's a training app, and it has 3 different scenarios that were done by the simulation folks down at the med school. Mm-hmm. And it shows EMS providers dealing with a child who stopped breathing in the middle of the night, a child who's been hurt in a car accident, and a child who's been ill and is finally starting to go through their death process. And then what we do is we have voiceovers and some slides in between different clips of the situations to help providers understand how can we help the families cope better in these situations. For example, from interviews with families and just from other focus groups with EMS providers, we found that if they introduce themselves, just simple things, if they introduce themselves to the family when they walk in and ask for the child's name and some history, and then help the family know what's going on during the different medical treatments that are happening, that makes a family feel calmer. If someone can kind of step aside with a family member to do that while someone else is working on the child and ask those kinds of questions and ask if they need anything else and help answer any questions they have, that also helps. So we have just put those pieces of information in the app so that the providers can understand what the best practices are for helping families.
So this is kind of for lack of a better term, a training video.
Yeah, it is.
That's sort of modern, it's digital, it's an app.
Yeah.
But it's just to help EMS workers and how best to deal with the family members that have kids who are dying or have died or are in traumatic situations, right?
Right. And the tricky thing is this doesn't happen that often, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And so we've got the app on a website, but we also have it on an Android phone, and we're now working to see if we can get it put on an iPhone and develop some other trainings, face-to-face classroom trainings with the materials we've developed to try to help spread this throughout the nation.
That was really interesting what you just said. You've interviewed some, 11 or 12 families, I guess, and asked them what can EMS workers do to make this situation better.
Right.
And you came up with the obvious. But you see on TV a lot of times when a kid gets rushed into the hospital, the parents are following in, and you see the ambulance or the hospital workers say, I'm sorry, you can't go in the room. I'm sorry, we can't tell you. You're going to have to sit out here.
Yes.
Is that the reality of the situation on the ground in most cases now? Or is it, if we change that model to the parents are welcome in and they ride in the ambulance with the kid, et cetera?
Right. There is a movement to more family-centered care where they'll now are really supposed to ask the family, do you want to watch us do this work on the child or do you need to step away? So that the family has a choice. Sometimes families can get very emotional and that can interrupt the work. And so sometimes the EMS providers will just quietly pull them aside so that they can do their work. So it just depends on the situation. We also have encouraged them to have the families ride in the ambulance. That also helps calm their nerves. And it can also help the children who may have some chance of life. A lot of times these situations, the child is either dead or is likely to die. It's very hard to resuscitate.
We're talking with Anita Barbie from the Kent School of Social Work about a grant that she received to put together an EMS app, an app for EMS workers, and how to deal with the parents and the families and kids that are in these traumatic, life-threatening situations. Well, as a social worker, you've now worked with some of these EMS workers. Do they really want that information? Are they thirsty for that information, because they're put in these situations and don't know what to say to the parents?
Yeah, this is a very tough field anyway, and the people who are in it, whether they're male or female, tend to be a lot like the firefighters and kind of first responders that you would expect. They're very strong. They usually feel very competent about the physical side of what they're doing to help, but they don't know these kind of softer skills. And so they are really interested in the information. About 100 people came and from across the state, did focus groups with us. They were very open about what goes on. And they also talked a lot about how they cope with these situations. And we found that when the folks can follow up with the family and maybe give their condolences when the child does die, that makes them feel better as well as the family, and maybe can lower any kind of lawsuits or worry about that. So just following through and helping people get some closure can really help. And so they were very open to our suggestions.
So the follow-up where the EMS worker said, "I'm so sorry,
Yes.
we couldn't save your son."
Right.
That is good for both parties,
Yes,
both the EMS
actually.
worker. Okay.
And people tend to kind of shy away from saying those kinds of things because
Well,
they're
that's
afraid
tough.
of saying the
Yeah.
wrong thing
Right.
or getting somebody in trouble. But really, the more you're open and transparent and show your empathy and compassionate, this is called the compassionate options for EMS, really does make the whole situation go better.
All right. And in this app, the way you did it, as I understand it, was you had a control group where you had some EMS workers watch these videos, and then you had some that didn't, and then you decided how they handled the family situation after that, right?
Right. So what we did was we went down to a firehouse in South Louisville, and we randomly assigned teams of about 4 EMS providers who would go into a situation with a simulated infant crying, and the parents were there. And half were able to see the app after that interaction and then do it again and kind of debrief and look at how the app could help that situation, and then half weren't. Those were the control group. And we found a significant increase in better behavior and more empathetic interactions with the parents in the experimental group.
All right. Well, good luck getting that on iPhones. It sounds like something.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
We're looking for more money.
Technology.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. Before I leave you, I want to talk real quick. I'll probably have you back to talk about this in
Okay.
a few months. But you've got a new federal grant. I think UofL is one of 4 schools that's looking on interventions on retaining child welfare staff and improving outcomes for the families that deal with CPS and social workers in the
Yes.
state of Kentucky. So
Well,
or it's nationwide?
It's
actually.
nationwide, and Kentucky didn't apply.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why. I think they're going through so many changes
Okay.
that maybe they weren't ready for us. We hit the ground running,
Okay.
and I've already had applicants. We've got 26 across the nation, and so we've got that down to 15, and we're going to visit. So unfortunately, Kentucky's not in the study, but we think from the things that we're learning in these different demonstration projects, we will bring that back to Kentucky to try to help our child welfare staff retain.
And that's the idea of the study, is to figure out why they're leaving.
Yes.
Why there's such a big turnover. Isn't it just salary? I mean, they don't make any money, right? The CPS workers
Yeah.
and social workers.
It's a combination of a tough job with a lot of emotional, again, secondary trauma, hearing about children being abused and neglected, low pay, but really it's also the stresses of the bureaucracy and how you're treated within the agency. So a lot of what we're going to do is look at how we can beef up the supervision and develop better practices so that it streamlines the work, maybe lower caseloads a little bit and spread out the work differently. Maybe giving people different tasks. So there's different things from the IO in industrial organizational literature that talk about ways to do this, and we're going to pull from that literature and see if it works in a child welfare setting.
We'll have you back on to talk about that. I
Sure.
think this is an interesting topic.
Yeah.
All right, Anita
Thanks.
Barbie, thanks for being on. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Good luck with the EMS app. Dr. Heather Felton is a pediatrician with UofL Physicians, ULP, as well as an assistant professor at the UofL Medical School. And she's here to talk today about things around the house that you may not even realize could harm your kids. Welcome,
Yes.
Dr. Felton.
Hello, thank you.
Good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
We always have interesting discussions about
Yes,
kids and
yeah.
their health and that kind of stuff.
Everything they can get into.
And the things they can get into. That's right. All right. Well, it's Poison Prevention Week in Kentucky when this is airing. And so let's talk about a poison that maybe parents haven't even thought about. Laundry detergent packets. Right.
Yeah. I know there's even a commercial out now where it shows a child playing with one or starting to play with one, and then the mom grabs it and puts it up. And they're advertising the packets, but they're also saying to put it up, which is definitely the advice that I would give if you have them. But really, the whole commercial makes me cringe because I hate seeing the little toddler holding the little laundry packet, because I know it's going through his mind, and it's like, this looks like candy, or it looks like a cake or something I'd want to put in my mouth.
Yeah.
And that is so bad.
And we're talking about those little plastic. They come in the plastic and they
Yes.
dissolve in the laundry, right? That's
yeah.
what we're talking
so
about.
it's a highly concentrated detergent. That's why you only have to use a little bit, and that was kind of the appeal of it. But the problem is that it's so highly concentrated, and you put that with a little kid who is exploring the world and touching everything, sticking everything in their mouth. And that is not a good combination. So anything that's wet, so like putting it in their mouth, will cause that packet to dissolve, and then you've got that detergent in their mouth, and that could be swallowed and cause injury.
Yeah. Is there enough concentration of what's in the laundry detergent to kill a child, or is it just to make them really sick and...
Both.
Okay.
Really. It's definitely possible if the injury were to be severe enough and to go on long enough without the symptoms being realized or to receive medical treatment, that would be possible.
Okay. So what do you recommend as the pediatrician?
So I have two little ones myself. I've got
Okay.
a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old. The 3-year-old is much better about not putting things in her mouth now, but the 10-month-old is definitely into it. Everything goes
Everything's
in her mouth.
going in the mouth, huh?
And I just don't get them. I get the liquid laundry detergent. And then all of my laundry detergent at home and everything that I have, that since I have little ones who are mobile and moving around, is either put up high where they can't reach it, or if it's in a cupboard down below with the child safety lock on it so they wouldn't be able to get into it.
You know, we're talking about the laundry detergent little packets, but the dishwasher
The
things,
ones are
they're the
absolutely
same
true.
ones.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And so, like, my kitchen doesn't have something kind of above the sink where I could put those up. So it's down below, but it has the child safety lock on it so they couldn't open it and get in there.
Of course, that should be a child safety lock. If you got kids in your house, it ought to be on that.
That's something you
On
got to
that
think
anyways,
about.
right?
Yeah, so most kids start crawling around 6 months or so, something about then. So about that time, you want to go out and buy a lot of those child safety locks to prevent drawers and cupboards from opening, and the little plastic pieces you stick into electrical sockets too. So.
Well, we're talking with Dr. Heather Felton, who's with the UofL Physicians, and she's a pediatrician, and we're talking about things around the house that can cause a problem for your kids if they get into them. It's Poison Prevention Week in Louisville and in Kentucky. What are some of the other things that maybe parents don't even think about that their kids could get into that could cause them to get sick or, even worse, kill them?
Or get hurt, yeah. There are a lot of different things. One of the tools that I recommend for parents sometimes is an app called Make Safe Happen. There's an app for that. There's
Of
an
course,
app
there's
for
an app for
everything.
that,
There's
yeah.
an app for this.
Make Safe Happen.
Make Safe Happen, yeah.
Okay.
You download it onto your phone, and what's nice about it is that you can program it to your child's age, and it'll tell you kind of what they're at risk for now. So, like, what you worry about for an infant is different than a toddler, is different for a kid in grade school, is different for a teenager. And so you can program it for these different age ranges, and then you can go through your house and you can search by outdoors, by living room, by bathroom, and kind of figure out what things do I need to think about as I move through the house. So that's one that I like a lot. So if it's something that we're not talking about today or has not come up with your pediatrician, then that's one of the things that
Use
I like
that app.
that parents can look at for. Because we were kind of talking about children as they become more mobile and moving around, furniture tip overs is something that you hear about every once in a while, but I don't know that it always gets the full discussion like some of the big ticket items do. You know, we always hear about car seat safety and drowning, which are very important and the most common injuries, but this one's a great one to talk about. And so there was a video recently that went viral.
Everybody saw that video. It went
one of
viral.
The twins and the dresser fell over on top
the one
of one
kid, and then the other kid
Yes.
picked it up and got his little brother out from underneath the
so
thing.
any heavy furniture like that, you want to have secured to the wall. And so they make different products, brackets where you can actually fasten it into the wall. They also make safety straps so it wouldn't hurt your wall if that's something that you're worried about. And then any heavy items like TVs and things like that, you want to make sure it's on a stand that it was made to go on. So something with a wide base that it's not easily to tip over. But most people mount their TVs anyway, which is also great.
Well, it's funny you should mention this because I remember when my wife and I both saw that online one time, and we had little kids way back when. We had the locks on the doors of the cabinets so they couldn't get in the cabinets and get into some poisons there. But we didn't even think about, well, he's 4 or he's 5, he's wandering around and he can pull over a dresser drawers and that kind of stuff. And we didn't even think about it. We had our TV, one of the big old TVs that were heavy, and we had it on an old sewing machine that was it had a narrow base, and we're looking at that going, well, that was really stupid, because they could have. Either one of my kids could have pulled that off and been smashed by it.
Tip over. Yeah, because they'll put their whole weight and they're trying to climb on it and pull themselves up. So they'll put their whole body weight into it and it can come down on top of them. So yeah, it's an important thing to think about.
And how about drawer stops for the
Those
drawers?
are good too. So
out.
yeah, I hear that a lot of times. I'm lucky my girls aren't quite that adventurous, but I do hear parents that come into my office and tell me about their kids who are like, yeah, they climbed up all the drawers and they use them like steps to get up on top of the counter or get into a drawer or something like that.
Or they pull one out from the top of the dresser and it hits them in the head.
Yeah, that's mine may have done that actually. Yes.
Yeah. You may be guilty on that one, right?
Yes.
Again, we're talking to Dr. Heather Felton, who is a pediatrician at University of Louisville Physicians and at the UofL Med School, teaches there. Driveway safety. You so often you hear about kids inadvertently getting backed over by their uncle or aunt or grandma or somebody.
You'll hear about it every once in a while. You hear a story about that, and it's really sad. And so many of these are unfortunate because they're all preventable injuries or accidents. And that's the thing is that if you're aware about it beforehand, there are steps that you can take to minimize your risk. And so I usually recommend not making the driveway an area where children play. This is for cars. We don't want to play here. So a good way to keep children out of the driveway is to not leave toys in the driveway. It's a little homing beacon for children. You don't want that. The other thing is that before you get into your car, do a once around, walk all the way around the car once before getting in and backing out. And in general, kind of letting kids know that the car is not a place to play. Like even in a parked car, kids can get locked inside. And that's happened before too. They run the risk, especially in the summertime when it's hot outside, of having injury due to the high temperatures.
Right.
So kind of knowing that like the car in the driveway is off limits and this is not a safe area to play.
Yeah, the car's for riding in and that's about it with mom and dad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What are the tips? You always see them whenever one of these deaths happens, the tips for parents when they're taking the kid to preschool or whatever, or the nursery. What would you recommend that they do to try and remember, hey, I got a kid in the back seat, and they'll just leave them there?
One of the things I think is so interesting is that when you look at the statistics of it, it can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
It really is something that you take a parent who has a new baby. This is a new routine for me. I am exhausted because they were up all night. And then especially if it's something where like the day is out of the routine, the regular parent who drops them off is not the one who did it today. And so I can't rely on my muscle memory and somebody will forget. And I think we've all done that. We think we're going home and we end up somewhere else and you're like, how did this happen? I don't even remember how I got here. So I think the first step is to realize, like, it could happen to me. And so what can we do? They have a couple of different ideas that I like. So one is taking something like your phone and sticking it
in the back seat with the kid, because you got to have the phone.
Everybody's got their phone all the time. Yeah. And then the added bonus that you probably shouldn't be on your phone while you're driving anyway. But that's a great one. When my daughter was born, my husband and I each had like a pretty large stuffed animal that we would put in the car seat. And then when we take my daughter and put her in her car seat, the stuffed dog came and sat in the front seat with me. So if I was sitting next to a big stuffed dog, that meant that the baby was
kid's
in the back seat.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
So
are
there's
all
little
ones that I
things
like.
just to remember that they're back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Dr. Heather Felton, thanks for being on the program
Thank
again.
you.
Always enjoy seeing you.
Absolutely.
Anna Fall and Joe D'Ambrosio are both with the UofL Institute for Sustainable Health and Optimal Aging. That's a mouthful. You know that?
Yes.
They've received an interesting grant to bring military veterans together with teenagers. All right. Welcome to both of you again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you too.
All right. Well, tell me about this grant, bringing kids together with military veterans. What's the deal?
What we're trying to do is create an experience for veterans with high school children and engage them in art activities so that you can build relationships, you can introduce them to art, and you can, in the end, try to help their health and mental health to improve. We try to reach out to children that's at risk and then get veterans into that mentorship role to guide the kids through the whole experience.
Okay. So the grant came from who? Who'd you get the money from?
It came from the Fund for the Arts.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, it's an art program, right? So it
Yes.
should come from the Fund for the Arts.
Absolutely.
All right, so the Fund for the Arts gives you some money, and now are you out recruiting?
We are actually recruiting right now because we start on March 21st. It's going to be our first sessions that starts. We engage them for 6 weeks where they come together for an hour and a half every week, once a week. And right now we are trying to get people to come to the Kentucky Museum of Art and Craft and also to come to Kentucky Shakespeare. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays we have those sessions going on.
So if you started rounding up some teenagers to do this?
We have the teenagers lined up. We just
You
waiting
really
for those
do?
We do. We have them ready.
We need
Yeah.
our veterans, though.
Really? See, I would have thought it'd been the other way around. So are you struggling to get some veterans? And what's the who's the age group here?
So we're looking at any veteran 50 years and older can participate.
Okay.
And what'll happen is they'll have a background check, and then they're invited. Once they pass the background check, they're invited to participate.
Okay. And they'll do what? You get these kids together with these veterans. What are the types of things they'll be doing through this art program?
So weekly, we're going to expose one group to just experiencing art. So just view things at the museum, just sort of take it in and not really participate in it. And then we're going to have another group who are going to participate in the art and really do things with other people, with artists and things like that. And then we're going to have a combined group who's not only looking at things and experiencing things, but also participating. And then we really want to see what dosage of art do you need to improve your health and mental health.
Okay, we're talking with Anna Fall and Joe D'Ambrosio from the Institute for Sustainable Health and Optimal Aging at the University of Louisville. And we're talking about a grant they've received to put veterans and teenagers together for art and health purposes. What are you hoping? Well, let me back up one question. Joe, what are some of the things of the hands-on art that you're going to be doing? Are you going to have these veterans and teenagers doing painting? Are they going to be doing pottery? Or what's the idea?
Yes to all.
Okay.
It depends on what's happening at the museum and what activities are really available. So they could be doing pottery. They could be doing painting. They could be doing visual arts. They could be acting.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things that could be done. So each of the days will be coordinated by the Fund for the Arts, and then they'll do a certain activity.
Okay. Why? Go ahead, Anna.
And they have contract with artists to take part in helping engage these groups of people into, for example, Kentucky Shakespeare, they're going to do performing.
Okay.
They're going to teach performing arts.
Okay, so you have a 16-year-old kid playing Othello or something?
Possibly, it could be, or a 55-year-old veteran.
Or a 55.
Absolutely, it could be. What's nice about this is that we're looking at this as a research study. So as Anna explained, we have our control group and our experimental group, and then we have our combined group. Mm-hmm. So we're actually looking to see if this really promotes health and well-being.
Why do you think it will? Or do you think it will?
Well, the literature is clear that if you engage people in art, you have improved health. What we don't know is what type of art worked the best. We don't know how much you need to engage people in art in order to engage, to get to that level of health and mental health.
Right. So
that
it's a
is
mental
possible.
health thing. It's not a...
It's not only a mental health thing, it's also a health thing. People can reduce their blood pressure by engaging in something fun, by building a relationship with someone else, by talking about things that's happening in museums. That's why these things are there. And what the Fund for the Arts really need to determine is what works the best for what group of people. And that's what we're trying to get to understand more.
And go ahead, Joe.
And it's creating an intergenerational program where older people can interact with younger people and both can learn from each other. And that's one of the focus that we have at the Institute, is really to bring those groups together.
That's what I was going to ask. How did you settle on teenagers with veterans? How did you get to that group?
It took us a long time to get to that specific group that we want, but the intergenerational component is what attracted all of us to this. And you know, not only us, but also our partners, is that we really want to see what intergenerational discussions and intergenerational relationships can do when you combine art into that mix. What that can do to health and mental health. We think that based on what the literature is telling us, that there could be tremendous benefits both ways.
So what is the literature saying? You keep saying, you've said twice now that the literature is clear that art does have health benefits. So you talked about blood pressure, I guess stress.
Stress, self-esteem, self-efficacy, you know, your ability. Many people feel that they can't do anything. They're not autistic. They can't do anything. They can't act. They can't sing. Well, someone has told me once that everyone can sing. Everyone
no,
can
I
sing.
can't.
Well, that's what people say. Until you engage them into singing, until you teach them the skill set, and then it becomes such a wonderful self-esteem booster.
Okay.
So.
And Joe, go ahead, Joe.
One of the things that Anna was saying too is that we need to get to another side of our brain. We're always on that real analytical side of our brain, and what art does, it gives us a chance to relax, to de-stress. So this is something that we need to do more of, where our society is really going towards more analytics, and it's taking us away from that side. So this is really an experiment to see if this really works and how it works.
Are you looking for high-risk kids and low-income households? Who are you looking for in terms of teenagers?
We are reaching out to schools that have a high percentage of children that are of low income, and we work with the principals and Jefferson County Public Schools to provide us with data that can help us pick students who can really benefit from this.
And I know this hasn't started yet, so you really don't know what you have in hand in terms of the kids, but are you hoping that some of these kids that you're going to get already have a real interest in art? Is that the idea?
We're actually trying to engage kids with no interest in art.
Oh, okay, so it's the opposite.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So kids that have never painted, like sports, but don't like to do pottery, right?
Right. It's the idea to see with someone with no engagement, who is struggling in school, who maybe is not engaged in the school environment themselves, see what this program can do for them for more engagement.
We're talking again to Anna Fall and Joe D'Ambrosio from the Institute for Sustainable Health and Optimal Aging at the University of Louisville. Do you think that this is going to turn out to be something like some of the other programs that you do with older Kentuckians, that when you put them together with the youth, that there's a chemistry there, that they learn from each other? Do you think that might happen here?
Definitely, Mark. Yeah, whenever we put older adults with younger people, synergy happens. And they get excited, they learn from each other, and they develop these close bonds in every program that we work with.
Okay. And how long is this project going for? This summer, right?
We have this group
starts in the spring.
Yeah, we have this group starting next week for 7 weeks, and then we have 2 more programs that's starting. One will start in the fall and one in the summer.
Okay.
So if you can't make it this time for veterans, there's going to be 2 other opportunities.
So
And Mark, I want to say one other thing too, and then on funding, the Jewish Heritage Fund for Excellence is actually the fund that gave the money to the Fund for the Arts, and then we joined with the Fund for the Arts to do this.
So thanks to them, for the Jewish Heritage Foundation, for
Absolutely.
providing the funding for
Absolutely.
it. So good for that. One more thing before we wrap up here. You've got a conference coming up here this summer. What is
We
that?
have a conference coming up in June, the Optimal Aging Conference. It's going to be June 11 to 13, and it's going to be at the Gold House. And they can go to our website and they can sign up there to go. If there's older adults in our community who want to volunteer at the conference, please let them contact us as well.
Very good. All right. So again, to get there, go to the UofL webpage. There's the main webpage of the University of Louisville, and go to search Institute for Sustainable Health and Optimal Aging. I know that's a mouthful, but if you search the Institute for Sustainable Health, you'll get there, and that'll get the information on how to find out stuff about these 2 things going on.
Can I also just mention,
Sure.
if you want to call, you can call 502-852-8655, and you can sign up right there to take part in this.
Again, thanks for listening, and go Cards.